Now, the European Union has announced a $50 billion investment proposal for Africa and the Mediterranean. According to EU officials, the plan would help fight migration and radicalization. The money would also help empower young people in the two targeted areas. The political and trade bloc also plans to partner with the private sector so as to help develop fragile states. Let's bring you more details on this now. We're joined by CCTV's Kevin Osbeck, live from the EU headquarters in Brussels. Kevin, of course, this is a large amount of money, $50 billion. Exactly how do we expect to see it being spent?
Well, this proposal was laid out by European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker last week during his big State of the Union address. And actually, he says he hopes to turn this into a $100 billion project because he says he hopes the individual EU member states will also contribute to this. This really represents a change in how the EU wants to deliver aid. In the past, it's given large lump sums to governments in need, governments in crisis. But what the EU wants to focus on, and this was all laid out during the aid conference a few months ago in Istanbul, is it wants to start investing in companies in the private sector to spur economic opportunities. The EU says this is more of a sustainable way to give aid. It gives back to the communities more, creates more jobs, more opportunities. So that is really the goal of the EU here, is to invest in companies with this money so jobs are created, and then henceforth people are less likely to become economic migrants and make their way to Europe.
And as you say, Kevin, it is a marked change in how the EU wants to deliver aid going forward. But they are looking at, investing a lot of money in places that are considered risky. Therefore, how do you think they might choose which countries to invest in and which ones might be targeted?
That's right. The president of the commission says he really does want to have this money funnel into parts of Africa, parts of the Middle East that are considered the most riskiest, and also the parts of the continent and the Middle East where most of the economic migrants are coming from. So even though no specific countries have been named in the EU proposal just yet, one could imagine that countries like South Sudan and Chad could benefit from this, because those are some of the African countries that are sending a lot of economic migrants to Europe. So no specific countries named just yet, but you can imagine, based on how this whole proposal is structured, it will be coming from those countries where we are seeing the most movement of people.
And of course, the EU is also hoping to bring the private sector on board, but we know that at times the private sector is very risk averse. So how do they intend on doing this?
Yeah, when it comes to this proposal, the private sector is really key here, because the aim of this program is to funnel this money into private European and African countries, European companies that want to do business in these so-called risky areas, as well as local businesses already operating there. So the hope is, by funneling money down there, more jobs will be created, more people will be put to work, more locals will have successful, prosperous lives, and then they won't turn to radicalization or also become so desperate that they really have no choice but to leave home. So now we're just going to wait and see how this proposal takes shape, and if the European Commission can get these member states to continue to give money, to double that sum, to see if this in fact does become a $100 billion project.
All right, Kevin Osbeck, thanks very much for that update live for us there in Brussels.